even if you really love cooking, often it's only at the weekend that you've really got time to throw yourself into it. This doesn't necessarily mean more elaborate food, but it certainly means more enjoyable cooking.
This is like little teeny weeny seeds of... Okay, my love. Will you put the chicken in, please? Oh my God. Thank you. Take me out on Saturday.
I was thinking it was coming up.
We often have eggy bread as a family weekend breakfast. Now, you can make eggy bread out of any stale bread, but I like making them in these star shapes. At least the children like eating them in these star shapes. And all you do is just cut them out. Mimi, do you want to dunk these? And then you just dunk the bread into eggs beaten. Wait. Into eggs beaten with a bit of milk and some salt. I'll do one. And then just fry them in butter. I like mine. With cinnamon, that's enough. With cinnamon and sugar, although the children like theirs and tomato ketchup, but colour everything. Got yours now, Mimi? Enough?
I love the aromatic, unstructured qualities of stews and the way they look after themselves when you potter about the house at the weekend. This Greek lamb stew with pasta is one of my favourites. This is lamb shoulder, which is both cheaper and has a lot more flavour than leg. I'm using about 2 kilos of lamb here, which is enough to feed 6 to 8.
That's the meat, and now the flavour base, which I think is the heart of a stew. Celery, to start. So important. Even if you don't like celery, please put some in. It adds a note that you cannot duplicate. Garlic, 4 fat cloves. I want this to be really gutsy. Squish the cloves just to get the skin off. It's so important to distinguish between what takes a long time to cook and what takes a long time to prepare, because sometimes you find that dishes which take ages to cook actually involve very little effort from you, whereas some fast food thing can take 15 minutes of solid chopping. Anyway, onions, lots. Time to blitz. Great. There's some oil left from browning the meat, so I don't need to add any more oil at this stage. So in the 5 minutes or so my vegetable base takes to cook, I'm going to start peeling the carrots, which will not take 5 minutes, even with my clumsy peeling. The thing is, I want the flavour of carrots, all that lovely sweetness, but what I do not want is little bits of chopped up carrots like school stew. So what I'm going to do is just bung them in and then retrieve them before serving the stew up. I know it sounds wasteful, but I promise you it isn't. You'll see. So that's done, and this is done. And by done I mean, again, not coloured, just soft, slightly translucent, but the celery adds a little greenness. Just taking half out, spread the remaining bit of vegetable mishmash around at the bottom, just pour the brown meat back over. It's like making a sandwich. Onion mush, meat, onion mush, delicious. But the reason I'm doing this, I mean, you don't have to just mix all around however you want. The reason I'm doing this is because I feel that the onion, cooked down and pulverised a bit, seems to keep the meat moister, more succulent. And I don't want a stringy stew. Carrots. So some bay leaves, because I've got the sweetness from the carrots and I want some nice herbal quality from bay leaves and, lovely, oregano, so beautiful. With stews, really don't be too hung up on, is it a teaspoon or is it half a teaspoon, is it 2 bay leaves or is it 3 bay leaves, 3 carrots or 2 carrots. None of it makes any difference and you'll feel so much more liberated if you just, bung things in, within reason. Now, tomatoes, and I've spent all day chopping these tomatoes and putting them into cans. Now the wine, whole bottle white, partly because when I ate a stew like this in Greece it was made with white wine, but also because it's nice to change flavours. White wine can be great with meat, just as red wine with fish. And water. It is very watery at this stage, and do not get alarmed. The reason is some of the liquid will just evaporate on cooking, but also because since I'm going to be cooking some pasta with this when I reheat, I want the water there so I can cook the pasta, and of course the pasta will absorb some of the liquid. Perfect, and it's come to a boil. Let it bubble for a minute. And now, plonk a lid on, turn it right down, and leave it for a couple of hours. If, however, you want just to forget about it, not even see it in your kitchen, just bung it in a low oven. I mean, it doesn't make any difference. You're just applying low heat to this wonderful stew for 2 hours, and it'll be cooked whichever way you do it. Ready. Just fish these carrots out. But not throw them away. Bring it up to the boil, throw in the pasta, and this is what turns it into such a wonderful sort of one-pot comfort meal. Macaroni. Okay, leave that to cook, and my carrots. Some Ligurian olive oil, more than salt. So delicious, cook's treat. You always got to have one of those. That take about 10 minutes. So much in food depends on contrast, and here, against that sweet, meaty lamb stew, I'm chopping oregano, fresh oregano. I use dried in it. And then, I've got this chopped. I'm going to crumble in with it some really sharp feta. Mix them together just with my hands, And this sharp and herbal mix will just meld and melt into that sweet stew.
I know, I saw her at the Christmas party.
Oh, right, cool. Yeah, she's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a Yuletide clock.
Baking is a lovely thing to do at the weekend when you've got time really to inhabit the kitchen rather than just rushing through it as you do in the week. And I love this sort of cooking, especially at night when the house is quiet and I can just go about it quietly, and I find it incredibly relaxing. I'm making a clementine cake now, and the clementines in question have been boiled just in water for 2 hours until they're really soft and tender. 4 or 5 clementines. If you want to replace them with 3 oranges, do. Squeeze any excess liquid out of them and put them all into the processor. Skin, zest, pith, everything. Just need to be blitzed to a sort of nubbly puree. Perfect. And now this couldn't be easier. You just need 250 grams of ground almonds, 225 grams of caster sugar, heaped teaspoonful of baking powder, and 6 eggs. The useful thing about this cake is that you use ground almonds in place of flour, so people who either can't or won't eat anything with gluten in it can eat this cake. And also it's the almonds along with the fruit that keeps this cake incredibly moist and delicious. And that means that you can make it, say, at the weekend when you've got the time, and then in the middle of the miserable week when you're feeling deprived and exhausted, you can come home from work and eat it. That's the cake batter made. You'll need a 20cm springform cake tin. It needs to be buttered around the sides and lined at the bottom because it is a moist cake. I love that reusable baking parchment, but you can use whatever you want. And then just pour this batter in. And then in a number 5, 190 centigrade oven for an hour. The cake's ready, it's had an hour. Should still be a bit sticky in the centre but coming away at the edges. And the wonderful thing is that you leave the cake to cool in its tin on a rack, so you don't have to sit up for a bit waiting to unmould it, you just leave it there overnight. I adore proper Sunday lunch. I don't think that roast beef and Yorkshire pudding can be beaten, but you can do things differently, and I often do. This is one of my favourite variants. The beef's cold, there are a couple of salads to go with, and the Yorkshire pudding really is pudding. Now, this handsome piece of beef has already been cooked. What I did was I rubbed it with olive oil and chopped rosemary and then gave it 25 minutes a kilo in a really hot oven. But that's because I do like my beef quite underdone. If you like it more cooked, cook it for longer. What you should remember in any case is that the beef will carry on cooking as it cools. But I'm going to move it behind me and let it cool over here while I get on with the Yorkshire pudding. Everyone has their own way of doing Yorkshire pudding. My way is to do it backwards. That's to say, the eggs in first with the milk and then whisking in the flour later.
It seems to work that way, and I know it's unorthodox, but I read about it in Jane Grigson, tried it. I've never changed my method since. And that's 4 eggs, by the way. 300 millilitres of milk. And on. But I love this back to front method. It works so well. That needs to sit for 15 minutes. I'm going to leave that and get on with the first salad, for which I need a hot griddle. Luckily, this is hot. And I know it sounds odd to have a hot griddle for a salad, but it's just that I'm going to griddle these lovely aubergines now and then let them get cool and eat them at room temperature. With griddling, the rule is always to oil the food and not the griddle. This is garlic-infused olive oil, which would be wonderful with the aubergine. And just turn the aubergines in the oil. They will soak up a lot of oil, but that's just because aubergines do. You just got to accept that. And it is what makes them taste so lovely. I never, ever salt them. I think people have this mad fetish about it all. I think it's true, however, that aubergines now are bred, or whatever you do to plants, to make them less bitter. But on the other hand, my mother never salted aubergines, and hers never tasted soggy, and they never tasted bitter. I think it's a nonsense, really. All they need now is a little more garlic oil, squeeze of lemon, salt, this lovely coarse salt like hail, some chives, and some just cracked pepper. Kind of the knobbiness seems to add to the smokiness of the aubergine. That's it. I'm going to put these down here to cool down to room temperature. And back to my Yorkshire pudding mix. The eggs and milk have been standing for long enough. I'm adding flour, 250 grams, spoon by spoon. It's been sifted because I want this really light. It's easier for it to be incorporated if you go slowly. Just going to give a final scrape down to make sure all the flour's absorbed. This is the stage at which most people leave their Yorkshire pudding batters to rest, and if you want to, you can, but you don't need to. Right, that's ready to go in the oven. The real key to fabulous Yorkshire pudding is to have the oven and the fat incredibly hot, as hot as your oven will go. I use vegetable fat because the smoking point is much higher than with other fats, and so that since it's so hot, you need to be careful. You don't want to smoke out your whole kitchen. Right, and that's at 250 degrees centigrade, that's gas mark 10, and I'm going to leave it there for 15 to 20 minutes, by which time it should be just blossoming and burnished and like a huge crown. Right, beef's done, aubergine's done, pudding's in the oven. The last thing, my pea, mint and avocado salad. I love this, well, primarily because it just tastes lovely, but also because it was one of my great Aunt Myra's 1970s specials. It's just very good. These peas are frozen peas, cooked till tender, not very soft, and then macerated in olive oil, white wine vinegar, freshly chopped mint, and a pinch of sugar. I'm going to need my huge plate for this. And when I say huge, I do mean huge. The lettuces I use mainly here are little gems because they're really easy, and also they provide lovely crunch, which is contrast to the peas. And chicory too is really a good contrast, not just because of the texture, but also because the chicory is very bitter against the sweetness of the peas. That's fabulous. And also there's a contrast in shape. Huh, perfect. Everything. The oil and vinegar that are on the peas already really provide the dressing, so just tumble these over, toss. Looks so beautiful and tastes so wonderful too. Very, very useful thing to have in your repertoire.
Now, one last crucial ingredient for another bit of contrast, avocados, which I keep on the windowsill to try and get every last bit of light and sun and warmth to they're just at the right texture, which these are. The thing about avocados, always buy early, use late, by which I mean if you get them early enough, you can make sure they're just the texture you need, they've got time to ripen, and use them as last minute as you can just because of this colour. This is lovely. Don't worry about what shapes you make. I mean, I like to use a knife and do these lovely little long boat shapes, but you can use a spoon and just clump it out if you want. I don't think there is a more beautiful salad. All it needs a bit of salt. Avocados drink up salt, I suppose, because they're so divinely rich and bland. And some freshly chopped mint. Not a lot, just enough to make the mint that's in the peas already seem to come alive. The alchemy of cooking. I commend it to the house. So how divine is that? The perfect stress-free Sunday lunch. Griddled aubergine, pea mint and avocado salad, and the most wonderful rare roast beef. Thinly sliced if my carving is up to it. I'm not the world's best carver, but I'll try and do justice to this magnificent beast. Vegetarians turn away now. Perfect. For me, anyway. Look at this, magnificent. I just love this so much, searing hot with cold thick cream and golden syrup. Just so wonderful. I know that I'm meant to be keeping this, but I have to have some now, not least to show you just how gorgeous it is. You have to see everything all together. It smells like a mixture between pancake and donut, which kind of defines pudding heaven for me. Just can't wait. Look at this. Don't you wish? Oh. No need to talk.
Move a little bit closer. Just a little bit. Yeah. Ooh, I'm so